all roads lead to reaction content. And eons ago, there existed a TV series so ahead of its time it was doing reaction content decades before there was even a term for it. Kind of like Cowboy Bebop, it was to become a genre itself. They called it Mystery Science Theater 3000 because I mean, I get what else are they gonna call it?
Okay, careful. Check both ways. Look out. Good. Now I can...
It was one of the pillars of that mid-90s kitchen experiment era of TV, when technology was becoming just sophisticated enough that a small team could roughly approximate the production capacity once reserved for large studios. Hey, kind of like with Live 2D nowadays. I kind of consider this, Space Ghost, and that one weird show on MTV to be sort of the Romulus and Remus and Poochie of viable DIY media. It presaged the arrival of the YouTube era in a similar way as civilian tracking tech led inexorably to indie VTubers overtaking hydrogen as the solar system's most abundant material. That is to say, today we'll be turning away from the world of VTubers, anime, and cultural relevancy in general to focus on a 30-year-old American puppet show that no one's ever heard of.
Agua. Agua.
Sorry. It may be hard to explain the concept of mystery science, but I'll try. These three guys watch movies and short educational films while providing real-time humorous commentary.
I'm so glad. I'm really happy.
Oh, too much vapor action.
And they do so as imaginative fictional characters set in a fully world-built universe, replete with character development, a loose lore about rival scientists at a morally dubious corporation, sentient robots, and a sort of years-long story arc involving time warps, guerrilla scientists, omniscient but dim-witted brain men bent on revenge, and lots of other weird stuff.
Oh, you guys know my wife, Prankor?
Whoa! Get me out of here!
So it's an unnecessary amount of lore framework for guys watching movies making jokes. I guess it's not that hard to explain.
Patch me through to the sheriff.
Maybe if I kill myself like Hemingway, people will remember me fondly.
One of the guys is a guy, and two of the guys are guys operating puppets. Puppets made of garbage. The sets and props are also made of garbage. In fact, come to think of it, that's pretty much an extension of the theme of the show.
It's a funny name, Critter.
Some fellas gave me that name when I was in the preschool.
I'm back.
Yeah, you know, it's between...
Making watchable comedy out of terrible movies and forgotten pop culture effluvia.
So, that was sex?
And know what? This actually affords us an easier way to explain VTubers to the uninitiated. It's digital puppets reacting to things with an unnecessary lore framework. Now, they're not made of garbage, but the concept is oft-evoked. Now, at this point, I should take a moment to clarify, this show actually got canceled and resurrected several times. The version I'm familiar with ran on the Sci-Fi Channel at roughly the Dreamcast era. There's also an early 90s version that ran on Comedy Central, yet another version from all the way back in the 80s that ran on some fucking other channel, I don't know. And since then, it's been rebooted on Netflix and YouTube and all kinds of other places. But the Sci-Fi Channel version I consider to be the ideal execution of the show's concept.
Hello, I'm Fido Hitchcock, the director of this film.
He's got a bucket of crotch-flavored popcorn.
It's so early, too.
It's the one I'm the most familiar with, so it's the one I'll be limiting my focus to. This isn't a retrospective, and I don't care about the other ones as much. That's my video anyway, haha. So the show focuses on a trio of main characters, protagonist and escaped human test subject Mike Nelson, and his robot companions Tom, Servo, and Crow.
I'm Servo. And I'm Cow.
Crow.
What?
No, you're Crow.
Yeah, I know. Well, of course I'm Crow. I just said I'm Crow, you great phoebe.
Well,
Boy.
Each episode usually starts with a cold open skit of them doing something silly when they get interrupted by primary villain Pearl Forrester, who perpetually pursues them through time and space in her misinformed plot for revenge.
You ever use one of these?
Of course, lawgiver, our civilization is far advanced in the use of weaponry and...
So as for the lore, of which there is a surprisingly replete amount, the sci-fi series starts off with Pearl becoming a quasi-deity to a futuristic race of ape people, using her position to ensnare the marooned crew of the Satellite of Love, who've been trapped in space for 500 years. Don't ask too many questions. Eventually, Mike accidentally helps a cult of bomb-worshipping doomsday cultists destroy the ape world with nuclear weapons, leading Pearl and her new sidekick, Professor Bobo, to team up in their ever-motive agglutinating revenge plot. Soon they encounter the Observer World, a planet or dimension or something, peopled by all-powerful brains who seem to be unclear on whether they have bodies or not.
Oh, that's absurd! I don't even have a body!
Mike accidentally destroys that world too, and now the villainous trio, fully assembled, continue to chase the Satellite of Love through a series of high-concept sci-fi encounters, eventually falling into a wormhole that strands them all in Roman times. And, It goes on like that.
I'm afraid Servo has contracted Roji panty complex, so I'm administering panties to him. I think he's gonna make it, but...
More panties, Mike.
Pursuant to Pearl Forrester's vengeance quest, among her many means of inflicting misery upon Mike is sending him a terrible movie to watch every week. Huh? See? Makes a lot of sense after all. See, you were beginning to doubt me.
Let me clear the table off for you, man.
Oh, and before you ask, Pearl shuts off the oxygen elsewhere in the ship while the movie is playing, and that's why he sits through them.
Hey, you know what, you guys? I'm just gonna leave for a little while. Mrs. F doesn't have any oxygen out there for us. We had to come back in.
Okay, the premise is as airtight as the movie theater apparently is. So after a brief intro, we have about 20 minutes of movie watch along, then a skit, then more movie, and so on in that manner until the glorious denouement.
We do that for 40 years, and then we die.
The movies themselves are like a tiny bit of primordial YouTube DNA in their own right. Since the show is meant to cost next to no money, but still make some, most of the movies they feature verge on lost media. So lots of public domain black and white horror movies, what Mike Stacklaza calls 80s action schlock.
Well, anyway, got that out of my system.
Forgotten indie films.
Finally, possible nudity. Okay.
And on occasion, when the runtime was a bit short, we're treated to an extra mini feature. Usually some kind of bizarrely earnest educational film or advertisement. Much the kind of stuff that guys like JonTron dredge up nowadays. And that's the show. Unsung influencer of countless online personalities, from Something Awful to Game Grumps, and it is the secret to my own hideous commentary style in a way.
My bullpig's evolved. Sounds like a medical disorder they need immediate attention on.
It laid the groundwork upon which years of Adult Swim and Zach Hadel cartoons have bathed their twisted light, resulting in the unemployable entity who stands before you today. Now, in all perfect honesty, it was kind of hit or miss most of the time. Good episodes are hilarious, bad ones are, well, mostly just kind of boring. They try, but sometimes there's just not much to work with some of these really bland features they ended up with, and they probably didn't have much say in the matter. Here's a James Bond ripoff with no action scenes. It cost us $3 to license it. You're welcome, get to work. But on the other hand, you get a lot of fascinating bird's eye view of short-lived cultural fads long forgotten. For example, the spate of hypno-regression movies from the late 50s. See, there was this book called The Search for Bridie Murphy about reliving past lives through hypnosis, and it kicked off a sort of pop culture hypnosis craze, kind of like zombie media in the mid-aughts.
We were just talking.
Then there's the numerous movies from the mid-20th century about living on the moon and space and shit. It's kind of interesting to see how people in the past imagine the future might be like. None of their guesses involved furry art commissions or booba physics. And goes to show how much they knew about the human condition, huh? Some other unexplored depths of cultural obscurity plumbed in these episodes are the occasional Soviet fairy tale movie, a rare British kaiju film, and a weirdly pugilistic educational propaganda film espousing the usefulness of springs.
You'll be the first to die.
They also feature several post-war tokusatsu films from Japan, though there isn't much toku here yet, if you know what I mean.
What's that?
Suppository man.
Prince of Space is a kind of poor, and I mean poor man's Kamen Rider, whose arch nemeses are aliens with Groucho noses.
Look at that.
More inexplicable yet is Invasion of the Neptune Men, which infamously utilizes actual World War II footage as B-roll for fight scenes with silly aliens. This gives rise to one of the most rent-free, head-dwelling moments the show has ever brought to life: the Hitler Building.
We took out the Hitler Building. Where's everybody going to go to see Hitler memorabilia?
Oh, the Hitler rides and games. The Hitler salt and pepper shakers.
And now I share it here with you. Treasure the memory always. And when we look up at the same moon, you and I, from wherever we tread on this wide earth in the darkling evening sky, we shall think, they blew up the Hitler Building.
Say, Mike, was there a Hitler building where you grew up?
Not, no, really.
Sure.
Much like the internet with its cloistered cultural canon of things like Birdemic and Troll 2, MST3K fans over the years were treated to a curated katamari of weird cultural flotsam. Gaze long enough into this particular rabbit hole and you'll start seeing allusions to nonsensical words like Rousdower or Crankcore.
Crankcore?
You are beyond healing when they start to make sense to you, much less when they become humorous. Among my favorite episodes, though, are a sort of Back to the Future with airplanes called Time Chasers, a bizarrely gimcrack pastiche of several unfinished movies called Merlin's Shop of Mystical Wonders, and a sort of werefish movie so wonderfully goofy it's actually a storied favorite of Red Letter Media. Another all-time favorite of mine is The Touch of Satan, a spooky little indie film about a guy who falls in love with a girl who turns out to be a witch, but her 300-year-old sister is also a witch, but she's evil for some reason, and there's handcuffing and murder and confusing intrigue, but more than anything, awkward romance involving the fish.
This is where the fish lives.
So after a full season of the indefatigable space chase, they got tired of building new sets every week, so they had Pearl's pursuit terminate at Earth circa current day, and the baddies set up residence in an evil Dracula castle. Castle Forrester serves as the base of their evil doings from that point forward, and their exploits revolve mostly around weekly acts of miscellaneous evil. Building death rays, holding Earth hostage, running fake cruise ship scams, interviewing Leonard Maltin, that kind of stuff. Incidentally, the Maltin episode was pulled due to some 11th hour rights issue with the movie, and it practically became lost media. Almost fittingly, for such an obscure hang-a-shingle operation as this was, nearly entirely bereft of star power, it almost seems fitting that the only big celebrity guest they ever got was almost never seen. Hint, hint. And that's the only time I'll acknowledge the ersatz-ass reboot in this video. Speaking of movie rights, that increasingly became a burden on the show's schedule as no two movies expired at the same time, and some of them were hard to renew. Reportedly, more than a handful of rights owners were less than thrilled at the treatment their product got on the show. Granted, there were times where the naked contempt for the product at hand was undisguised.
A severely impaired box turtle with a very busy schedule. Just give him a camera for a day. He'd come up with something better than this.
Okay, when you came up with the idea for Hobgoblins, were you high on crack? Say yes.
Yes. I had been doing quite a bit of crack that day, as I recall.
And the film showcases were simply too prominent for fair use to shield them. The most personal they ever got was probably when they mocked ex-Bond villain Joe Don Baker to the point he reportedly vowed to beat them up if he ever met them in public.
He makes Randy Quaid look subtle and diminutive.
Excuse me.
Not for any price. His weight is forcing him down the stairs.
Maybe we should lay off the food jokes, guys.
And despite what you might expect, the theater comments were not off-the-cuff deliveries. One thing they exhaustively honed over the course of the show's lifespan was the writing style, dedicating ever more time to rehearsing the theater segment jokes, trying their best to recapture the genuine flow and energy of the initial reactions.
The rehearsal process got to be longer and longer as the show went on, because we realized if we just really keep working on this, it's so much better.
They really do succeed in making the non-stop string of jokes appear like preternaturally perspicacious stream of consciousness joke-telling.
Fridge, large meats.
Punt, speed chunk.
Butch, deadlift.
Not that the lameness of the movie doesn't occasionally thwart them regardless, but the two strongest points of this old series are definitely the impeccable delivery.
There's a red scarf floating in the air. Oh no, it's her. She's camouflage.
Yeah.
Coupled with the thoughtful writing.
Other writers of ours would sit down and assign all of these jokes we had to lines of time code in the movie.
These golden age MST3Ks are kind of like a live streamer perspicacity boot camp. I'd recommend them to content creators as a sort of Ludovico training for thinking of off-the-cuff commentary.
You know what I'm looking at right now?
What?
That exit sound.
Oh, yeah.
There's almost like a vocabulary of types of jokes you get used to spotting. There's observational humor, just choosing weirdly specific details in the frame to dwell on.
Oh, that's the biggest clove I've ever seen.
Your decision, not mine.
Mike, if you're ever this family's secret Santa, don't buy them potholders.
Can I help you?
Yes, do you sell turquoise plastic pith helmets?
And also just plenty of weighing in on film production issues.
So they make tires and feet in this movie, but not people.
Dark? It's not dark, Rebane declared.
Visuals for a movie? Who needs them?
Voiceover humor. Oh, these especially work when recontextualizing the scenes into a sort of fugacious ad hoc fan fictions.
Well, they're not making out yet.
Move your feet, you load! You got a dead alien in the attic.
Lisa!
Oh, that was a good chicken head.
They all hone these stock archetype voices they use for hijacking characters.
Who's got it going on? Me, that's who.
It's dimly reminiscent of YouTube poop humor.
Just honk.
Not to say they don't occasionally make some topical pop culture reference that swiftly lost relevance.
Okay, what is it now? 10, 10, 10, 10, 3, 2, 1, 10.
But overall, they strike a delicate balance between being overly self-referential and being able to let the characters' personalities inform the timbre of the jokes. It's all scripted and rehearsed, but it feels very authentically like a first viewing reaction most of the time.
No, I mean, you look great. Really.
Big part of it is due to all the actors recording in the same space at the same time. Like how they did Davy Jones on those pirate movies. Yes, the Mystery Science Theater silhouette is on the same caliber as the Davy Jones guys from the Pirate of the Caribbean movies. Another important part of the in-theater performance is how much they react not just verbally and not only to the movie, but to each other.
He farted.
Hey, shut up. That was you.
Sorry.
They dutifully replicate all the small chuckles, nods of assent, and other minor organic gestures they probably made in the writing room.
That guy in front has a private box.
Behold the subtle working of my talents.
Is subtle?
I made a recording. Tell me what you think. Whatever it was, it almost made me capsize.
It's not intuitive to have characters in a comedy laugh at their own script, but they're going for an unusual amount of verisimilitude. Sometimes, too, they'll just dispense with fluency and let out an anguished sigh at a bad pun.
He's boxed in.
Yeah, well, I'm cardboard.
Shut up, you two.
You know what? People are just dying to get.
No.
Or just get fed up and lash out at the film.
I'm working here. I'm in the racing business.
Some kind of love face or
Shut up. Everybody shut up.
Those moments where they lack a cutting insight are important. They pace the thing out. Not to mention stretches of blessed silence where things have time to breathe.
Flash of fish.
It wouldn't work nearly as well if it was just a bunch of random comments being thrown in helter-skelter by an untold multitude of different people with no particular perspective. Perspective is a big part of what made this show stick, too. Filmed in the Midwestern state of Minnesota, not a region exactly known for cultural output.
Now I know why they call it the flyover zone. Because this is what the Midwest produces.
It's not afraid to brandish its highly regional dialect, nor to make insanely local references.
This can't be Wisconsin. There's no billboards for Tommy Bartlett's water show.
I had no idea Wisconsin Dells was a real place till I accidentally drove through there on a road trip once. It had a mirror maze. It was cool. It's kind of fitting, too, how many of these lower-budget off-kilter movies are filmed in places other than Hollywood. Vermont, New Mexico, Alberta, Arkansas? Come on, man. Are you telling me Arkansas is real? It's like DLC or something.
Snap into a Slim Jim!
These little robots are like cultural Sherpas through the obscure corners of the lost art world. But in the third and final season on Sci-Fi, they seem to have a sense that this was the end, so they go full-on experimental with the movie choices. Branching out of the usual sci-fi, fantasy, horror themes, they do a grungy movie about a girl moving to LA, only to be exploited by the sleazy world of fully clothed dancing and dune buggy rides. Classic gateway drug. Probably the most atypical movie choice this season was a dreary German TV production of Hamlet.
Oh yeah, this was munching all right.
I gotta think this episode would be loved by theater kids.
Yeah, forget it. I never knew him. I made it all up.
The series finale featured, of all things, Diabolic, which is apparently a fairly long-lived anti-hero comic book character from Italy. It's a strange choice for the show, and it's certainly a strange choice for the finale of the series.
Gentlemen, let's open our movie with a 10-minute shot of a spinning radish.
But at least it gave us my favorite numismatic sex joke.
They make love in English pound notes. Their sex is 50% better.
And there are many of those! There's also one more thing I didn't know about until more recently. At some point, a bunch of press junkets for the Oscars or something fell into the MST3K crew's testers' stained hands, and they wove pure comedy gold out of them. They're basically like parody Oscar specials, and boy, what a perfect fit for this show. I truly wish they got to make more of these even after the main series ended. Please find a way to put these on DVD or streaming or something. I'd say the perfect introduction to this show and its concept is the Titanic segment they did.
I'm gonna sink this bitch.
It's downright surreal seeing the MST3K silhouette in front of actual big budget movies, if just for brief stretches. So there, that's one of my cultural touchstones. Is it the greatest show ever made? No. Was it actually a broad influence on current media culture? Probably not. But it's one of those unique miracle products that managed to carve out its little niche despite a total lack of crowd-pleasing mainstream appeal. The basic rule of reaction content was already codified way back then.
Because that's the rule of commentaries. You're supposed to find something that you don't like looking at it and then look at it a lot more.
It's as the great YouTube anime man Steak Bentley said.
When you learn to love the things that suck, you can't really lose.
Then 9/11 happened. I don't know. This has been Galaxy Brain Ocus. Good night and good luck. Special thanks to Project Misty for the upscaled footage. Also, Bijou the Octo for my wonderful moon art. Check her out here. I'm also on Twitch too, or something. Hope I don't get in trouble for using footage of the final sacrifice on here. I understand the producer considers putting footage of that on YouTube to be a battling. It's fair use though. Well, anyway. Goodbye.